Thank you very much, sir, for arranging this discussion. Thank you very much, Ali. And I also thank the friends which I see coming again here. I have to see Ron Chamberlain and Rick Agoli, of course, and some others. Thank you very much for coming and for listening. I would like to go to the genesis of the problem. We can have some kind of ideas about how to cure the problem. You know, medicine is first of all about diagnosis of the problem, and when you have a good diagnosis, you can have some kind of prognosis and some kind of understanding of the problem in order to design the cure for the problem. If you don't understand the source of the problem, you have nothing to do. If we try to understand what the problems of Syria are, what the problems of Syria, you see here the result. But the original problem of Syria is the fact that Syria, unlike other countries which we are aware of in this part of the world, is made of different groups, ethnic groups, tribal groups, religious groups, and sectarian groups. I would say divided and even fragmented along these four axes of fragmentation which exist in many countries in the Middle East. Ethnic axis is mainly between the Kurds and the Arabs. There are some other ethnic groups in Syria like Turkmens and Armenians, but they don't hold to large spaces as the Kurds are here in the northeastern district of Assad. Another divide in Syria, which is very important to understand the problem, is the fact that these two districts on the west, overlooking the Mediterranean Sea, are the Alawi districts, these two districts. The Alawis are viewed by the Muslims as Shia infidels, not as part of the Shia. This is what they claim they are. But the reality is that the Alawi religion is totally polytheistic religion. I can show you some pictures of sanctuaries of the Alawis, which testify that they are all the way infidels, mushrikun, as they say in Arabic, means idol worshippers. And according to Islam, at least the extremist versions of Islam, those Alawis, not only they do not have any right to rule the country because they are a minority, there is a big question if at all they have the right to live being infidels. So this is the problem. And it is well described in my book, Assad in Search of Legitimacy, which was published in 2005. And if you are too rich, you can buy it, because the publisher actually redefined highway robbery by asking, I think, like $75 for this book, which he didn't invest much because I gave it to him in PDF, which he can only, print, and that's all. But this is how the academic publications are working these days. Assad in Search of Legitimacy means that the Assad regime, neither the father nor the son, have never had any bit of legitimacy. And unfortunately, this is something which in this country is not understood. This regime always lived on its sword, and we saw it very clearly between 1976 and 1982, when his father, Assad, butchered his people, some 50,000 people altogether, for 6 years. And now, Khayr Khalaf and Khayr Salaf means the son is even better than the better, And then the father already reached the number, I believe, of 200,000 of victims of his struggle to survive in power. So this is actually the problem inside Syria, not between the ruling elite and the majority. It's between the infidels and the Muslims. and this is how things should be viewed. I know it is not easy in this country where religion should not play any role. In the Middle East, religion plays, I would say, the major role, especially in Syria, but in other parts of the Middle East as well. The southern district of the Druze, Sueda, I believe, when the state becomes, when, not if, when it becomes totally dysfunctional, the Druze might very well declare statehood and independence. Welcome to Warren Madison. And as they had, actually they would like, I think, they will be willing to resume their independence or their autonomy, which they enjoyed until 1925, when they were forced by the French to join the Syrian state. And here I must also draw your attention to a letter which the Alawi leadership, including Assad's grandfather, sent to le-Yom Blum, the Prime Minister of France of those days, of the 30s. He warned le-Yom Blum that if the Alawis will be annexed to Syria, a day will come when they will be butchered by the Muslims. Apparently, the day is coming. I'm not sure he was a prophet, but he knew very well the nature of the place. He wanted that the Alawis will have independence. I published this the English translation of this document. I didn't find it, because, I didn't discover it. It was known, but recently, on the wake of the events in Syria, it has renewed meaning when you read what the group of six from the nobility of the Alawis are writing, including Assad's grandfather, how they actually talk about the danger to the Alawis if they will be annexed to the Syrian country. So, the problem of Syria, the genetic problem of Syria, is that the state as a frame was not legitimate in the eyes of the most of the citizens. The second disease, that the regime was not legitimate in the eyes of the majority of the people. Only those who were making profits out of the regime viewed the regime as legitimate. But all the others, the majority of the people, saw this regime as totally illegitimate. And this is actually two genetic diseases of this country. And what we see today is when everything actually comes from under the rag and collapses. And I foresee a total collapse of this country, just like Yugoslavia, just like the Soviet Union, and not just like the Czechoslovakia, which divided itself to two states in a civilized way. I think that what happens today in Syria reminds us all with the bloodshed in Yugoslavia. And this is actually the same disease of a framework, means a state, which was illegitimate in the eyes of large part, if not the majority, of the population in Yugoslavia, and the regime, the Tito regime, dictatorial regime, who was viewed as illegitimate again by the majority. So the same pattern of colonialist creation of a state, which was tailored for the interests of the colonialism, in this case the French one, and when it comes to a time when the game is over and everybody fights each other, only because they were forced by the colonialism to live together, hoping that one day they will all sit around one fire and sing Kumbaya together. It didn't happen, it doesn't happen, and what happens today is the outcome of this hope of the West. Syria in this case is no different from, let's say, from Iraq as well. Because Iraq also, the neighboring country, is also a conglomerate. And in this map you can see very clearly the tribes of Iraq. And tribalism in the Middle East, unlike in this country, tribalism in the Middle East is not only alive and kicking, it is alive and killing. And this is actually the title of my next book about tribalism, Alive and Killing Tribalism in the Modern Arab World. And this is how Iraq looks like until this very day. And whoever thinks that these tribes will ever cooperate on something, I think lives in a la la land. Of course, in the north are Kurdish tribes, in the south Arab tribes, and some Turkmen tribes, and some Persian tribes. And again, another failing state, which is fragmented. In Iraq has all the four axes of fragmentation. The ethnic one, mainly between the Kurds and the Arabs, and Turkmens as well. The tribal one, as we see in this map. The religious one, religious axis. In Iraq there are some 10 religions. 10 religions. Muslims and Christians and some Jews and Zoroastrians and Yazidis and Sabais and Mandays. Okay? All these religions which are viewed by Muslims as infidels. Not like Jews and Christians who could be tolerated by Islam. All those Yazidis and Mandays are, of course, Zoroastrians are viewed as infidels. And this is the problem. And of course the sectarian problem between Sunnis and Shiites and so forth. So Iraq was blessed, cursed, I mean, by having all these four axes. And unfortunately, there are some people who still try, or tried since 2003, to resuscitate this dead body politic named Iraq. And today in Syria as well. Whoever talks about Syria in the future can talk in the same breath about Yugoslavia in the future, or the Soviet Union, which became Khabarkana, which became part of the past. Syria, as a consolidated state, is part of the past. And this map, which I published like more than a year ago, it's not exactly, it's a provisional map. I don't know where the border between the Bedouin part of the east will pass. And it's only the idea. Okay, this is not a real map. But this actually shows the parts of Syria which will emerge when this country, and I talk about the long term. Now, why am I sure this will be the situation in the end? In the Middle East, there is a group of stable states, which is the Gulf Emirates. And I exclude Bahrain. I talk about Kuwait, I'll show you the map. I talk about Kuwait, Qatar, and the 7 Emirates of the Union, the United Arab Emirates. Now just to clarify, the United Arab Emirates are not like New York, New Jersey, Dakota, and North Carolina. They are united like France, Germany, Holland, and Belgium. Okay? Separate, independent, and sovereign. They united their foreign policy and security policy just like France, Germany, and so forth united their currency and standards of production. Okay, and some others. Okay? So this is the United Arab Emirates. Full states, independent states, which united some issues. Okay? So there are altogether 7 states of the Arab Emirates in addition to Qatar and Kuwait. These countries, first of all, are stable. Secondly, legitimate. Thirdly, they don't have elections. You know why? You don't need elections. They have the leadership. Why they are stable? Because every one of them is mainly one single tribe. Al-Sabah in Kuwait, and I don't relate to the foreign workers. Foreign workers like Americans who come to business, to Dubai, have no political aspirations. They come to make money. Okay, so they sit at home and go to work. They don't take any part in politics, so they are not counted as part of the political framework of Dubai. Okay, so I put them aside. I don't count them as part of the thing. So, but those who do make the difference in politics are usually in these countries one single tribe. Al-Sabah in Kuwait, Al-Thani in Qatar, Al-Nihyan in Abu Dhabi, and so forth. Al is tribe, like Ohel in Hebrew, which is a tent. So this is actually the source of stability in the Gulf Emirates, because of the fact that every one of them is a homogeneous society. And when the society is homogeneous, it's stable. On this you can have stable political arena, and on this you can build skyscrapers with helicopter pads on them, so they don't have to stand in line when they go to the airport. But when you take Iraq, fragmented as it is, the society is shaky and fragmented. The political arena cannot function because every politician represents another part of the population, and the economy is total collapse. So it's not the oil which creates stability in the Gulf. Dubai has no oil and no gas. Okay, and Iraq has oil, and so Libya, and Yemen, and Sudan, all are oil-producing countries, and the oil not only doesn't contribute to the stability, it contributes to the fighting between the tribes and the parts of the population. Therefore, stability is achieved in the Middle East only when we have homogeneous societies upon which we have homogeneous states, and therefore you have good economy. This is the order of things. Look for homogeneous society, and this is the source of stability and good life in the Middle East. Therefore, Syria, if Syria will ever come to any kind of stability, it will be only because every part of Syria will be based, as the map shows, on more or less, and I emphasize more or less, a homogeneous group, because always you have some people who are a minority, and usually minorities have no aspirations to turn the table over the heads of everyone. So this is that, in my humble view, the future of Syria, just like this future of Iraq. And Iraq is divided, as you know, factually, to a Kurdish state and an Arab state. And within the Arab state, already some tribes announced that they are willing to be states like this country. Means to take, let's say, taxation and education and development upon themselves, because the central government is dysfunctional. The same thing happened in Yemen. Is about to be divided again, as it was divided until more than 20 years ago, between southern and northern Yemen. Libya, Jordan. Okay, all these countries, in my view, are on the edge of being divided in a way or another, whether it will be in a bloodbath like Syria and Yugoslavia, or in a more civilized way, as it was in Sudan, by agreement, okay, which came after 50 years of butchering each other. 2 million people were killed in Sudan. Who knows about this? So this is actually what the Middle East actually is working to, and Syria is only one example of the future of the Middle East. I think that in this country, people should start changing their view to the Middle East, to see the reality of the Middle East, and to think about new Middle East, which will erase the borders, the artificial borders, which were marked by the colonialism, for the colonialism, or to serve the interests of the colonialism, which created atrocities like Syria, Iraq, Libya, and so forth. This is, in my humble view, the future, and the only future which will provide livelihood rather than causes to fight constantly each other.
Thank you very much.